Hello everyone, I'm Masaf Nabashi from Sony CSL. Today, I will talk about one of the transversal methodologies in open systems science based on the exploration process during the management. I call it Open Systems Exploration, and it is also the name of this e-session. I will also introduce a concrete example of application in ecosystems management. Complex systems problem we are facing today are mostly that of open complex systems. Taking some examples in climate change, global warming and abnormal weather are the results of complex interaction between social and ecological systems. Natural disasters such as hurricane hits and seismic events force our society to change organization and develop new adaptive measures. These phenomena cannot be isolated merely in confined subsystems when our society tries to cope with. Besides the nature of conventional complex systems, open systems are those with open boundary and strongly interact with its external environment. The elements and interactions both change as they evolve. It is difficult to simulate completely. Important events that require our action are rare but not predictable nor reproducible. They are one-time only events that brings in important and irreversible change in our society. It is impossible to stop. It should be managed during operation. From inside of the system, as internal observers, because we are also involved and making part of it. Following the previous talk of Professor Mario Tokoro, I here summarize the relationship between open systems and its closed systems approximation. As open systems are difficult to analyze, conventional science tends to make up a corresponding closed system in a laboratory. It is a simplification to ensure reproducibility of experiments and predictability. The management of reality, on the other hand, are based on open systems. It requires the exploration of what it could be rather than what it will be. We call this exploration process of continuous struggle to yield a better management model as open systems exploration, and try to develop an effective framework that can ensure scientific plausibility beyond heuristic operation. I first characterize the open systems exploration with respect to dynamical system theory. Dynamical systems are usually defined as a closed set of variables as a closed system and define a system as a reproducible trajectory. In this figure shows the orange system is acting on blue potential and controlled with red trajectory. Controlling a system means to give feedback to keep staying in a desired state. What we need for control is the quantity of information, such as entropy in information theory. It is based on a precise modeling and is accessible to empirical simulation that can reveal all possible behaviors of the system in details. On the other hand, the nature of open systems lies in one-time only events. We cannot keep an open system in a stable state. Besides, we want to move actively to an alternative state to seek for better management. Therefore, single information measure can easily become useless when the system is in constant modification. We need to redefine and prepare diverse information measures and test what is meaningful in the new situation. It becomes a necessary process to consider new information measures and test their validity in an ever-changing situation. We call it as information generation, an essential protocol for open systems exploration and management. We can also shed light from the perspective of artificial intelligence. The closed set of variables in artificial intelligence is expressed as a frame, and how to properly choose a frame to solve a task is called frame problem. Here I expressed a frame domain with blue rectangle and consider the optimization of search with orange function. When a proper frame is fixed, we can perform an optimization with an algorithm and evaluate how good is the achievement. In open systems, first of all, we cannot generally solve frame problem. We should constantly change and try new frames to see if it better fits to the situation. We should prepare and apply plural algorithms to construct a better workflow for better management. This is a process of both exploration of new frame and optimization with combinatorial complexity. It generates new frames of perception and corresponding evaluation simultaneously. This implies ontogenesis as an internal representation of artificial intelligence. To show a concrete example of open systems exploration, I take environmental assessment. Environmental assessment is a prediction of environmental consequence of a plan, policy, program, or project concerning development such as agriculture and urban planning. It evaluates the impact of proposed plan on the environmental quality. As in the back picture, several administrative organizations and NPOs are offering tutorials for environmental assessment. The environmental quality can be measured with scientifically defined indices. Physical index based on geographical information such as landscape heterogeneity. Common chemical indices such as chemical oxygen demand (COD) and biochemical oxygen demand (BOD). Typical biological index is index species that refers to the richness of biodiversity and the quality of environment that supports such diversity. Let's consider how to explore index species in open system situation. This is a protocol of typical conventional assessment of biodiversity. Conventional assessment is based on a closed system approximation of natural environment. The scoring system of index species that represents the quality of the environment they live in is predefined by a set of past statistical data. It is a fixed static scoring framework. The number of index species are also predefined and limited. We cannot change the list and score of index species during observation. Observation method is also defined externally to ensure the objectivity and reproducibility of measurement. It usually requires trained professionals to conduct properly. In short, it is a fixed framework based on the past experience without counting the specificity and possible development of the system in the future. It is close to actual change of situation in real time that comes from outside of the past conception. When considering open system situation, it is necessary to extend this framework into an interactive, dynamical, on-the-fly interface to capture ongoing change and incorporate new variables. I call it as dynamical assessment, an expression of open systems exploration in environmental assessment. It consists of flexible database, a wide range of machine learning models, and actual human observation, all coupled together in order to realize an adaptive system for the extraction of better list of index species during the management process. It is open to a fundamental reconfiguration of the system itself. If new species are frequently observed, it can become new index species and expand the list. Observation can be modified according to the available means on site. And it gives interactive suggestion to ameliorate the way observation during operation. Therefore, it doesn't require prior training. It is open to wide public and accessible to citizen science. It exerts itself to renew the system framework, both in observation and its evaluation, reflecting maximum information brought in by real change. It is also important to notice that dynamical assessment is a natural expansion of conventional assessment. By fixing the parameters, dynamical assessment system can express conventional protocol as a part. The dynamical assessment is an essential information communication technology to realize a data-driven citizen science in open systems environment. It conforms to the data-driven citizen science aimed in the roadmap of complex system science. A wide exploration of what it could be instead of restrictive prediction of what it will be, it is important when considering the survival in open system situation. Dynamical assessment system is the implementation of an important premise of open systems exploration. Conventional assessment with closed system perspective, however, is compatible to a project based on closed system. For example, conventional agriculture is a typical development plan with strongly closed system perspective. It is controlled with a serial process with an unidirectional manner. Crops are under strong parent-slave control by human. The farmland is close to outer ecosystems by eliminating useless species, and interaction between crops are minimized. Based on the closed system control, it produces lots of environmental load in surrounding ecosystems. Since it is a controlled, reproducible system, the evaluation fits to conventional assessment. But how about agriculture with open systems perspective? For the matter of sustainability, we should cope with climate change and resource depletion. It urges us to consider new agriculture in open systems, including external social ecological change. Humans can no longer have full control of the farmland with heavy resource use. It is open and influenced by external environment, flying in endogenous seeds, insects, animals, climate, and ecological change. If we rely on the ecosystem self-organization process instead of the fossil fuel, it should intelligently incorporate interactions within crops and surrounding ecosystems. In such open system situation, continuous refinement of the management protocol is necessary. Dynamical assessment can provide ways to handle open systems agriculture. As an example of open systems agriculture, we have established Symbolic project. Symbolic is a novel food production system based on open system science, especially on synecology or ecology of community. This project is also included in the CSDC e-laboratory Open Systems Exploration for Ecosystems Reverting. It replaces conventional closed system protocols such as tillage, fertilizer, and chemicals with self-organized ecosystem functions in open environment. High-density mixed polyculture with extremely high biodiversity generates complex interactions between crops and outer environment. As a consequence of self-organization, it provides ecologically optimal productivity, and it is more resilient, adaptive, and sustainable than conventional monoculture system in small scale. Here, we need to explore and optimize complex vegetation and dynamical ecological transition using information technology such as dynamical assessment. From now on, we concretely develop dynamical assessment system using the database of Symbolic project as an example of open systems exploration. We have a database of biodiversity and farming knowledge collected by citizens in several Symbolic fields and surrounding environment in Japan from 2011. The database comprises more than 20,000 pictures, in which more than 1,000 plants and insect species are recorded. Let's use this database and construct dynamical assessment system. We first need to develop some models that will give prediction for future observation. The first example of the model is well-known complex network interface. A multi-partite graph can express connections between observed species and observation place. Here, the nodes represents the name of species or place of observation, and the links represent the degree of co-occurrence. This is a simple superposition of all past data that gives redundant prediction to future observation by listing up all related records in the past. Based on the prediction, observers can better explore the field and register new data. And we can also change the graph expression by giving feedback to the model, such as changing the link to correlation network, limiting time window and geographical region, associating keywords from farming knowledge, and so on, to obtain better informative database. The second example tries to incorporate not only biodiversity record but environmental data such as meteorological variables. Obviously, environmental factors are a dominant condition of the natural vegetation. How to combine sensor data of environmental variables and biodiversity records is an essential task for the ecosystems management. Sensor data are usually continuous variables that draw trajectory in the phase space. Biodiversity data, on the other hand, is merely a list of the species name or a discrete symbolic sequence. The model should generate a match between continuous and discrete variables. Symbolic dynamics analysis in dynamical system theory can give a way to integrate both continuous and discrete data. We can express biodiversity data as discrete segmentation of phase space. In each section, species names are associated with sensor data point. Here, we use simple Voronoi diagram to segment the phase space of meteorological data with corresponding species name. Sensor data can then be superimposed as a trajectory according to the timeline of observation. On this model, we can analyze the symbolic dynamics of the measured ecosystem. Sensor data are the estimates of underlying dynamical system, and biodiversity data are the discrete symbols that represent the state of the systems. This model can also offer prediction to human observation that leads to better explorative registration of new data and tune model parameters by human feedback. As a sensor data, we used open meteorological data from Japan Meteorological Agency. It contains more than 20 meteorological variables such as temperature, sunlight, precipitation from observation points all over Japan. We chose the nearby station of each culture field to study the association with the biodiversity record. We first performed principal component analysis of meteorological data to obtain a two-dimensional phase space that gives maximum resolution for the segmentation of the system. This figure shows the result of factor loadings, how the meteorological variables are aggregated into two principal components. Using the two principal components of meteorological data, we created a Voronoi diagram division by setting mother points as the meteorological data at the day of observation. Biodiversity records of culture fields are associated to each partition. Based on this figure, we can make several suggestions to the coming observation. For example, we can associate the past biodiversity record and tell the observer if further acquisition of data is needed. In this figure, the color represents the number of species associated to each partition. In the bluish region, there is not yet sufficient data. The system will ask you for more observation. In the reddish region, on the other hand, there is sufficient data to start the prediction. You will receive some prediction of species you could observe. The prediction of a species' appearance is possible by estimating its niche on the meteorological condition. The red partitions in this figure show the appearance of a moth, Parnara gutata gutata. By interpolating these partitions, the system can infer the range in which this species is expected to appear. And this goes the same with another species, this time for a plant, Sonchus aspar. The interpolation of the red regions is the estimation of its niche. When considering two species interaction together, we can study the correlation between their estimated niches. If there exists a significant overlap between these two, the system can make a suggestion to observe if there is any ecological interaction between these species. Without knowing ecological knowledge beforehand, one can deepen the observation and possibly discover causal interactions using statistical correlation. The third example mainly focuses on the model selection process as a feedback from observation to models. We take an example well-known hidden Markov model to again integrate between meteorological and biodiversity data, and this time with temporal segmentation. This figure shows the result of temporal segmentation with 3 hidden states. The dynamics of mean temperature is segmented into 3 phases with different colors, and each state is associated with a list of observed species that accumulates and expands as observation proceeds. It generates seasonal segments, in this case 3 different seasons, based on the similarity of appearing species. We set the number of the hidden states as the parameter for model selection. We prepare the models with a number of hidden states ranging between 2 and 10 and see which model can predict best the ongoing observation. This figure shows the result of the real-time evaluation of the model selection. The color of the circles represents the best model parameter, or the number of hidden states that gives the best prediction at each moment. We can see the best prediction model changes by time. To study the meaning of these dynamics, I associated the black line, which is the appearance rate of new species in each observation. We can see at the first stage that the number of hidden states increases. Since more hidden states means finer segmentation of time axis, it means the model resolution increased regarding the prediction of biodiversity. In the summertime of 2012, the model resolution decreased as new species were observed. This means that the former model were not perfectly able to estimate a new observation, and the system had to decrease the model resolution to widen the range of prediction. It decreased the overall likelihood of the model, but it was bearing the adaptation to a new situation. Once this reconfiguration is settled, the model resolution re-increases. The model can again predict biodiversity observation with high resolution, this time even better than 1 year before. The system went through a model selection and learning process simultaneously that explored a wide range of model parameters to detect an optimal frame of prediction that changes by situation. Information generation, as defined as a premise of the open systems exploration, has happened in this process. I have defined a premise for open systems exploration and constructed a concrete system of data-driven environmental assessment, namely dynamical assessment. 3 example models were demonstrated using the Meteorological and Biodiversity database in Open Systems Agriculture. It implemented the process of prediction observation, feedback to the models, registration of new data, and selection of variables in dynamical interactions between observers and the system. It is now a question whether this exploration process is really informative in the refinement of action management. We further proceeded to a field test of this system to test the effectiveness on site. I worked with students who do not have professional ecological knowledge and applied dynamical assessment and observed biodiversity of several silviculture fields in Japan. We used the system during a year to predict the species observation as a prototype of data-driven citizen science. As a result, we obtained 228 suggestions and observed 210 species that were divided up into 3 categories of index species. Past index that were suggested from the system based on the past data but not observed. Consistent index that were both suggested and actually observed. And novel index that were not suggested but newly observed. As the nature of open systems, the suggestion is never perfect as a system is in constant evolution. What is important is to consider the elimination of past index for the refinement of the prediction and invest to the exploration of novel index species to better incorporate environmental information and keep on editing better list of consistent index species. As a consequence, the index species in dynamical assessment is never a fixed framework. It is generative, data-driven, flexible, and adaptive to both environmental change and system reconfiguration. In this result, since we obtained a non-trivial balance between past, consistent, and novel indices, the system seems to capture both consistent and changing features of biodiversity. The ratio of consistent index represents the reproducibility of the observation. The numbers of past and novel indices reflect the sensibility to detect environmental changes, though it may also contain the change of observation method. Finally, we associated these index species with the number of edible species in the fields to assess the environmental quality in terms of agricultural productivity. These pictures show the top 12 of consistent and novel index species. So far, these species refer the best to the environmental quality in our fields with our observation method. It is the list of the best index species as of August 2015. It contains a wide range of taxonomic complexity and gives us insights what kind of environment we should construct to augment productivity in the field. Related ecological information of those species becomes a source to create new farming knowledge in real-time management. This will be modified as the fields develop in open systems. So I'm looking forward to exploring the evolution of the list next year with citizen participants. Thank you very much.